All right, shalom, shalom. Give a second to check the feed.
Hey, Priest, I can't hear you on my end.
You can't hear me?
I'm a, uh, I'm gonna go out and come back in and see.
All right, go ahead. Make sure it's good. Make sure it's good. All right, sounds good from my end. All right, sounds good from my end. All right, let's give it a second for the brother to come back in. Sounds good from my end. All right, let's give it a second for. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay, con. So yeah, we're running back. All right, so before we get started with this lesson, we want to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Bracha HaKodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And peace and salutation to the elect that's out here laboring in all truth and sincerity. To you we say shalom.
Shalom.
All right, it's for brothers from Great Millstone, Charlotte, coming back with another Lord willing edifying lesson to feed the elect of the nation of Israel. And pretty much, as you see the title, all right, we want to, speak on this whole situation. Brothers have been touching on dealing with how the U.S., Israel, and Argentina ultimately, voted against allowing reparations to be granted to you so-called Negroes, all right, to pretty much, atone for the horrors that, slavery, pretty much has brought. All right. So I want to play this video and then we're going to, read the article, get a few scriptures, and just get into it. So start with this video.
So let's talk about what just happened at the United Nations, because this vote didn't happen in a vacuum. A resolution was introduced addressing the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, including acknowledgement of harm and language around reparatory justice. And now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Countries that voted no: the United States and Israel. Countries that abstained included the United Kingdom, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, and others. So now let's focus on the US, because that part is not random. The current administration under Trump has already been tied to policy efforts and rhetoric around limiting how race, systemic racism, and US history are taught and discussed across federal and state levels. So we've seen this in restrictions and pushback on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
And they got cut off. I don't know what happened to the other part of the video, but the point remains the same. She was going into pretty much as we have here in the article. Let me pull it up. We had the UN. As you see here, the NBC News, U.S. is one of the 3 countries to vote against UN resolution calling slavery a crime against humanity. It says Argentina and Israel also voted against the resolution, which called for reparations. All 27 members of the UN, of the European Union, were among those that abstained. All right. It says the UN General Assembly on Wednesday adopted a resolution declaring the trafficking of enslaved Africans, which we know that word Africans is really talking about the so-called Negro, which is the part of the Southern Kingdom. All right, because the so-called Negro, West Indies, and Haitians, you make up the Southern Kingdom, which was pretty much Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. All right, so it says the greatest crime against humanity and calling for reparations as a concrete step towards remedying historical wrongs. It says the resolution also urges the prompt and unhindered restitution of cultural items, including artworks, monuments, museum pieces, documents, and national archives to their countries of origin without charge. The vote and the 119-member world body was 123 to 3 with 52 abstentions. Argentina, Israel, and United States were the three members voting against the resolution. And we understand why, they voted against that ultimately because these Edomites, which I'm going to finish out before I say what I want to say, it says the United Kingdom and all 27 members of the European Union were among those that abstained because what we're witnessing is Esau Edom refusing to take accountability, for the atrocities that he committed as far as the transatlantic slave trade. All right, which we got some scripture we can hit. If you got anything, you can bring it out too. But starting out, let's get Psalm 73, and we can start at verse 5. Actually, let's start at verse 3.
Okay. This is the book of Psalm, chapter 73, and verse 3. For I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked.
Right, because we understand the reason why Esau Edom was able to pretty much amass all the power that he has right now is because we know that he went throughout the world conquering with his blessing, which was the sword. When you read about that in Genesis, Genesis 37, I believe, where he got his blessing from Isaac, which is the sword. All right, so he was able to prosper in the world by going around and rape, robbing, and murdering these different countries and amassing this great wealth unto himself. All right, so we know that these Edomites have pretty much done many great crimes against humanity, but the most horrific one that continues to stain his legacy is the transatlantic slave trade. All right, because when you go into the enslavement of the Israelites, all right, the Edomites under different names, okay, the Spanish, the French, all right, the British, till we have here in America, which was the epitome of pretty much the fucked upness that was done here. All right, America is the epitome of a system that was created to destroy the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American. And in this country, it's not just the so-called Negro that suffers. All right, we have, according to Jeremiah, the 50th chapter, all right, the Northern Kingdom suffer under the hands of the Edomites as well. Okay, but the scriptures say the children of matter of fact, get that real quick. If you got anything you want to say, go ahead. I'm gonna grab this real quick.
Just adding to that point, Esau is in the midst of that shameful spewing going out, man, right? Continually, right. So we already know that they, the PDF files, right? They're being exposed for being the ones who are destroying the earth. So now, why would you expect them to admit to, the faults, right, of the atrocities of slavery, man, right? They're already being found out for everything else. They're not going to willingly, put themselves in another position like this, man.
Yeah. Because, hey, to keep it a buck, we know the main reason why they couldn't acknowledge that as the greatest tragedy to human, because that's going to pretty much dispel the whole notion of the damn Holocaust, man.
Right.
But we ain't got to go into it, but we understand that was all bullshit. All right, the facts don't add up to that story. Okay, but the fact is, the true so-called Holocaust is what has happened to the tribes over here in America. So this is why they're never gonna fully admit the wrongdoing that slavery has done to our people, because we still to this day are affected by the effects of slavery. And like I said, this ain't no pain Olympics when it comes to the tribes, man, because all of our people were participated in that slave trade, man. Because you got Great Britain, all right, they had took the Northern Kingdom, because we know the Gadites, all right, they went into slavery first. Ultimately, they was getting took, back and forth, all right, and then you had the Latin tribes, they were getting dropped off on the different boats, all right, to the different lands that we see today, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and so on. And then finally, all right, once they saw that when they came over here to America, that the Gadites, they weren't going for that shit. All right, we had a lot of these Gadites that were starving themselves, all right, to pretty much die, because they figured death is better than being oppressed by these devils. All right, they went and got the Southern Kingdom, So all the tribes have suffered because of this devil during that transatlantic slave trade. So I want to get this real quick. This is Jeremiah 50 and 33. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. All right. And this is why when you look at the history of the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, we all have the same oppressor. Okay. And that's why we have that the one sign that we bring out at camp, all right, to where we share a common enemy. Okay. Hey, you devils stole the northern the Gadites land and the Latins, the story because Mexico, that's their land too. You stole that. All right. You stole the so-called Negroes' freedom. Okay. And ultimately we all have been oppressed. Okay. We have all been oppressed by this devil. So ultimately when it comes down to is they're never going to admit that fault of what they have done because they know that that's going to take eyes off of the hollow hopes and truly they'll have to atone for what they did against slavery, which they're not going to do. All right, that's the true reparations, as we know in the scriptures, is going to come in the kingdom. Okay, because we don't want your fucking money, we don't want your 40 acres and a mule, because that's all bullshit. We want you in chains, man. We want your blood, man. Okay, because like the scriptures say, man, the scriptures say an eye for an eye, man. All right. So at the end of the day, we're not surprised that these devils were going to reject that because it's only right, man.
Right.
We can finish out.
Got Psalm 73 and verse 4. For there are no bands in their death, but their strength is firm.
Yeah, because they're able to do as they please, man. All right, this whole society was set up on the destruction of the tribes, man. All right, so it goes beyond. All right, the chattel slavery. All right, with the bands on our necks, man. All right, they created a system to even when they released us from the chains, they put the chains, on our minds, man. To where our people to this day still don't know who they are, man. For the majority of 2/3. All right, and even if they're introduced to the truth, all right, they're not able to accept it because of the bullshit that Esau has set up. He created a society to where the education system, the judicial system, the everything, pretty much everything in this society, it gives power to the matrix to keep you lost, man. All right, go ahead.
Verse 5. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men.
Yeah, the same laws that they use to oppress Jake with and throw the book away at Jake, they break themselves, man. So here it is. We live in a hypocritical nation to where a nigga could go to jail for selling weed, but then they open up dispensaries. All right, niggas get yammed up every day for committing credit card fraud and identity thefts, and these fucking small hats are over there committing the greatest form of identity theft to this day, man. Because all it is multiple sources outside of prophecy that detail that those people are not who they say they are, man. Yeah, nobody questions that, man. All right. Why? Because the power's in their hand. All right. They're not plagued by other men because when you rule a society and you make the rules, you can break the rules, man. And that's why Jake can never really overcome in this place, man, because this is not our rest, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain, violence covered them as a garment.
And look at this as we're going into, man. The fact that they're able to come out here and tell you that you niggas don't deserve reparations after they openly admit on how horrific slavery was, man. They literally will tell you through their scientists that it's a thing called epigenetics, to where trauma literally has been studied to be passed down in your genes, to where you inherit, pain. You inherit, the struggle. You inherit, the trauma that we faced as a people from generation to generation. That's passed down, man. That's in our genes, man. That's in our DNA. So they'll tell you something like that is real, but then say that, we can't identify the transatlantic slave as the greatest crime against humanity, man. That's bullshit, man. So that shows you these devils aren't fair judges, man. Go ahead.
So their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than the heart can wish.
Yeah, here it is. They have the whole world in their grasp, man, and they refuse to do right by the people that they have wronged in this world, man. Go ahead.
They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily.
And that's the point. It says they are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. The fact that they can sit up here and say that they are opposed to allowing so-called Negroes to receive reparations for a crime that they every day admit, all right, through their media, through Hollywood, all these slavery movies that we see, they openly tell you what they were doing to us, and we know that those movies are PG compared to the stuff that we don't know about. All right, we know about the buck breaking, we know about the gator bait, all right, the artful dodger, ugly zoos, all right. We know about all these different things, but those aren't justifiable means to allow some type of reparations for slavery. Like I said, we're not looking for that. All right. We know according to Deuteronomy 28 and 68 that no man is going to redeem us. All right. The word redeem means buy, because that role is specifically reserved for Yahweh Shai. All right. Yahweh Shai is going to be the one that's going to vindicate us from this hellhole that we have been born up in, man. That was it on that though. You got anything?
This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5 and verse 1. It reads, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as afflicted them, and have made no account of his labors. So that's what we're seeing right now is the men of the Lord are standing up and telling this devil, right, what's about to happen to him. But as we see, they don't even take into account, the atrocities that they've, perpetrated in the earth, man. They don't see these things as negative, as we just read, right? They speak wickedly concerning oppression, man, right? Mm-hmm. So they'd rather be celebrated, right, for what they've done in the earth. But now they're starting to see, everything turn against them, man. That's why all the nations outside of the EU, right, voted for this. But then you got the EU, refusing to vote, and then you have America, Argentina, and those Israelis voting against it, man.
Yeah. Hey, it's funny because it's been these AI videos that Iran's been supposedly dropping. And in the videos, they're showing like all the countries that America, not America, that Israel and America has been doing wrong. And so when they're shooting these missiles off, it's like it's in the memory of all these different countries. And people on Threads and X was talking about, what about the so-called Black Americans? So I just happened to get on yesterday and I saw they did a new video, and it was like Iran's been listening. And then the video they showed you, all right, all the different countries, and they showed the blacks in America with the chains on. And it was like, this is for you too, Which let's get this straight. You Iranians, all right, you're not out to clear either, man. None of you heathen, right. Because all of you have had a part in our captivity. All right, we know about the sub-Saharan slave trade. Okay, we know how a lot of Jakes were forced to become Muslim. All right, off of you having a hand in our slavery, man. So let's get that out the way. No nation is exempt from the coming judgment that we're about to bring when we get that power. Because real quick, this is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 9. It says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So all of you nations have had us in captivity. All of you nations has had a hand in killing us, whether it may not be physically killing, all right, but you nations come over here to America and contribute to the destruction of the Israelites, man. All right, we know that you Arabs and you East Indians, you have these corner stores to where you sell Jake poison, okay? You so-called Africans, man, hey, we know you was eating us. All right, and you sell it, you contribute that as well. All right, you Chinese, you sell us the fucking chicken. All right, but it's not chicken, it's rat and all these other dogs, cats, whatever. So just using these smaller examples, all of you have had a hand in our captivity And the main reason we know this because Psalm 83, man. All right, all of you were confederate and complicit in the helping of Esau take us down. And one other thing I might add is that y'all know who we are. Y'all know that we are the Israelites. So if y'all know that this is what will be deemed a crime against humanity, where was the outcry? Where was the help to try to get us out of this situation? All right, our cries fell on deaf ears because all you heathen benefited off of us being in this dead state, man. So that's why I said none of you are innocent, man. All of you are guilty, because First Maccabees 2:10 says, what nation have not taken a part in her spoils, man? All you nations benefit off that, man. All right, you got something?
Okay, well, I was just gonna add to that. The Lazarus and the rich man, right?
Right.
The dogs, licked the sores, man, and that's what these heathen nations did, man. Right? They saw us in a destitute state, and instead of helping or offering some type of relief, they continued to profit off of it. But I wanted to get this here. Lamentations 2:16. It reads, "All thine enemies have opened their mouth against thee. They hiss and gnash the teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up. Certainly this is the day that we have looked for. We have found. We have seen it." Right? So that was the mindset of all these nations up to this point, man. Right? Now that they're trying to get some type of brownie points, right? By going back to Jake and telling them, we feel for you, but it's too late for all that, man.
That's right.
Right? Esau, he's gonna get it the worst, but y'all all had a hand in this, man. Right? No level of reparations is gonna be able to pay back what was done. So even if they did vote 100% for reparations, it wouldn't have mattered, man. Right? That's not gonna change nothing. Right? Niggas have already they've already lost it, man. Right? That if anything was given, it would do more harm than good to the so-called community in the first place, man. Right?
Exactly.
But all these nations were complicit, right, when the time to stand up was there, man, and they took advantage of it. So we're not what's the word? We're not looking upon them with any favor anyway, man.
Nope. And to back you up, this is Jeremiah 30:16. Therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thy adversaries, every one of them, as you just mentioned, all you nations that were complicit, shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. So that's just showing you that all you nations are going to go into captivity, because as we just read, I'm going to read it back in Revelation 13:10 again. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. So yeah, we're waiting on the opportunity to round you heathen up and put y'all in chains, man. And that's one of the the first glories that we're gonna have in the when we get that power, when Yahushua returns and establishes the kingdom of heaven, is going around the world and rounding up all your so-called nobility. Okay. And you're going to be the first fruits of slavery, man. All right. Because like you said, the reparations, that's not what we're looking for, because we're at a point in time now to where we know that the petrodollar is out of here. All right. We don't want no useless money. No, we want true riches. All right. True riches. As what made Adam rich. Let's go to that real quick. I said Adam. I meant Abraham. Salaki. Let's see. This is Genesis 13:2. It says, and Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver and gold. And another point of that riches is slaves, because he did Abram not have servants? Okay, what's another word for a servant? It's a slave. All right. So, hey, we're gonna have you nations in slavery, man. As we just read the two precepts, and there's many more, but the point is this, man. All you nations are gonna go into captivity under the Israelites when we get the kingdom, man. When we get that power, man, that's the first thing we're doing is going to round them up. So this, that we're reading is nothing more than confirmation to why, we say what we say, man. All right. So let's read a little bit more of this. So it says the resolution also urges the prompt and unhindered restitution of cultural items, including artworks, monuments, museum pieces, documents, and national archives to their country of origin without charge. Now, we understand can you get a whole second Ezra 6 54 on down? Because everything in this earth ultimately belongs to the Israelites. But we had that, situation that happened a few years when the Queen of England, she had died, Queen Elizabeth had died, and you had all of these different, countries pretty much blasting her ass because they was going into, the so-called, royal artifacts that they had were nothing more than stolen from these different countries. But ultimately, they were stolen for us. All right. Because we don't go into a lot, and here in Charlotte, we haven't talked to them a lot, but we go into the fact that these Edomites over in the Vatican have, under the Vatican, it's a plethora of the treasures and artifacts and everything that they have stolen from us. The fact that Russia opened up their vault and they showed you the Russian icon, those are our relics, man. We're going to get those back as well, man. So the fact that they're talking about this shows you that they know that prophecy is coming. All right. And these nations, all right, they feel that power shift, happening in the spirit, and they know that the Israelites are about to get back on top, man. All right. So it says the vote in the 193 member world body was 123-3 with 52 abstentions. Argentina, Israel, and the United States were the three members voting against the resolution. The United Kingdom and all 27 members of the European nation were among those that stand, and we wonder why. We know that because all of these nations were complicit in our slavery. Because, like I mentioned, pretty much all the Europeans, but the French, the British, the French, all right, they were all complicit. When you read about our downfall, really leading from us fleeing into the western coast of Africa, all right, because from there, all right, our tribe brethren either suffered mainly under the British, the French, or the Spanish. All right. When you look into the history of the tribes, man, it's one of those three that mainly, had a part in putting the foot up our ass, man. All right. That took over our country, that made us slaves in that country to the point to where we'll use like Jamaica, for example. All right. Is it the Spanish or the French over there that owns the land to where they can't even go on the beach? Do you know?
In Jamaica.
Let me see. Who owns?
I think Jamaica was a British colony, and
I see. Well, there we go.
Like Haiti and like that island, Hispaniola.
Yeah, you're right. So it says the British Crown owns the beaches in Jamaica, and then like you said, over in Haiti, it's the French. We know in like Puerto Rico, certain parts of Mexico and so on. That's the Spanish. So these just the examples of what I'm saying as far as the nobody in the European Union really wanted to speak out because they know that they were complicit. So this just aids the sentiment that these Edomites, they know that they're guilty. And that's why you'll see Putin and these different countries make these jabs about, here it is, America with their hypocritical asses will go to these different countries and scream about how their leaders are unjust and how they're wrongdoing the people. And then he'll say, well, what about what y'all did to the so-called blacks, man?
Mm-hmm.
Which the Russians they ain't innocent either. But the fact of America is guilty, man.
Right.
I'm gonna grab this real quick, then we get that second Esdras. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 16. It says, "Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory." Now, all right, we see that slavery is a stain on Edom's history, to the point to where they had to get a guy like Trump to get in office because, hey, it was a thing called white guilt that was overtaking these Edomites to where they literally were becoming ashamed of their history. So when Trump came in, he came with that spirit of like, yeah, we did it, and we proud that we did it. This is why you're seeing that narrative amongst these different Edomite Christian nationalists now, guys like Matt Walsh, Stephen Miller, and these different people in Trump's cabinet, coming with that pride, because they know of what they've done to get to the position that they're at. They know everything that they stole and the people they've killed to get to where they're at. The Christian Crusade, the conquistadors. They're proud of their history, man. They're not gonna allow that to pretty much be a stain for them, but they know that they can't continue forward with the narrative of America's slate is clean because the blood that's been shed, man. So the nations around the world are beginning to speak out against this because they're tired of America, man. All right, and they know that at some point justice has to be given to the tribes, but it's not going to be given from them. It's going to be given from on high when Yahweh Shah returns, man.
That's
all right. You got it out.
I wanted to get this for you real quick. It's a reparation in the Adam Online Dictionary. It says repair, act of mending, and who's coming to do the true repairing, man. Right? Is Yahweh Shah.
That's right.
Nothing these devils can give us can fix what was broken. Right? Yep. The damage has been done. Right? No amount of money, no amount of resources. Right? It's too late for all that.
Yep.
It says compensation, recompense, satisfaction for injury, right? And that the true healing is going to come from the Lord, man, right? When the scriptures talk about the whole head being sick and the heart being faint, that comes along with being in this American way of life, man.
Yep.
Right? So nothing that they give you is going to be able to heal that, man. It says what's done to repair a wrong. It says the act of repairing, restoration, compensation for war damage owed by the aggressor, right? And we know, Esau has been at war with the tribes from since Esau and Jacob, man, right? So now that damage, people would like to receive whatever recompense or whatever repayment, but we know that the only way that we're going to be able to truly overcome this is through the Lord, man. Right? Anything that they give you, you're still attached to this system.
Yep.
There might come a time where they say, look, we'll give you reparations, but you got to take the chip. Right? So that, like, being in that mindset of we know what we're owed, but we're not expecting it from them, man.
Right.
But getting this 2 Ezra 6:54. Says, and after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen.
Because we know that we are the chosen people of the Lord. All right. The world would chastise the Hebrew Israelites for saying that, but nobody will go against the so-called tiny tops for saying that and using that as a justifiable means to go and blast the fucking Palestinians all hell, man. Saying that they got to get rid of Amalek, but then you'll get on the Hebrew Israelites for saying that that's wrong. That we're saying that we're going to put nations in slavery, man. We're not killing nobody, but we're the ones being persecuted. So it's showing you the hypocrisy, man. Exactly. But the Lord does have a chosen people, and it's us, man. And that's why we see the tide and the spirit is changing towards us, which is why these devils are about to come down with that great wrath because they're no longer able to control the narrative.
Yep. Okay. Verse 55. All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes.
The world was made for our sake. Everything in this world was made for the benefit of the Israelite. And through the Israelite, the rest of the world, all right, will they'll be able to reap in the benefits of it once the Israelites put the world back in the correct state it's supposed to be in, because only us are able to truly govern the world in the correct way it's supposed to, because only we were given the law, statute, commandments, according to Psalms 147, 19, and 20. Go ahead.
As for the other people, which also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but
Mhm.
like unto spittle, and hast likened the abundance of them unto the drop that falleth from a vessel.
Right. The Most High isn't caring about you other nations, man. Yeah, he compares you to a drop in a bucket. He compares you unto spit. When you spit on the ground and you see those droplets hit the ground, that's how the Lord compares you other nations, man. And that's ultimately why you see a lot of these heathen are beginning to speak out, because they're trying to, get in, they're trying to get favor. But it's not gonna be no, okay, y'all spoke out, so we're gonna take it easy. No, man. All you heathen are going into slavery, man. All y'all can get y'all ass kicked, but Esau is gonna get it worse than all the rest of y'all, though, man. Go ahead.
And now, O Lord, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and to devour us.
Keep going.
But we, thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given into their hands.
Mm-hmm.
If the world be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure?
Right, and this is why I wanted to bring that out, because as we see here, they want to give the stolen things back to the country of origin. Well, that means you got to give the Israelites everything that was took. All right,
Right.
because like I said, everything in this world belongs unto us, even the heathen. You heathen are our inheritance, according to Deuteronomy 28:1. So when he said we will have power over the nations, that's divine sovereignty, man. All right. We dominion ultimately, because that's really what that word goes into. When you look it up, it means dominion. All right, power over the other nations and everything in it. All right. So the Lord he's gonna be the one to restore everything back to us, man. All right, like you said, that word reparations, the Lord is gonna be the one to restore restitution back to the Israelites, man. All right. So we don't care if you want to vote against, giving us reparations, because it was never meant for y'all to give it to us in the first place, man.
Right.
All this does is just further prove that you nations are admitting of the wrongdoing that has happened to us as a nation, man. All right, not just the so-called Negro. All right, because like I said, you want to, you Jakes out there that hear this, you want to, run with this whole narrative, or what I call the Pan Olympics. Oh, we got it worse. No, man, all of us have suffered under the hand of the Edomite, man. So it's going to be a thing to when the Lord restores. He's going to restore all the tribe, which is why you're seeing the northern and southern kingdom being restored again. This is the house of David being lifted up, like as the days of old, because we're not going to be in the kingdom, northern and southern kingdom. No, we're going to be the nation of Israel, all right, brought back as one, and being the ruling body, the ruling government over the earth, man. All right. So this is just another step to show you how the Lord is condemning Esau, man. This is another charge that's being brought to him, all right, on the world stage, okay? Because the fact that Israel, the U.S., and Argentina, which Argentina only got drawn in because they're like they're pretty much like an understudy to both of them, because we know that the president of Argentina is a small hat, and America has been supplying them with money and support, as well as allies, to pretty much keep them afloat. So of course they're going to go along with that, but all that is just showing you that it's the Edomites, all right, the 3 that voted against it, and the 27 that didn't want to do a vote, because all of them are guilty.
Right.
That should show you, where we at. All right, so we're gonna read a little bit more of this and get a couple more. We're gonna close it. It says, while the United States opposed past wrongdoings of the transatlantic slave trade and all other forms of slavery, it does not recognize a legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not legal under international law at the time they occurred, U.S. Deputy Ambassador Dan Nagara said before the vote, which is bullshit, because, like I said, they make the rules, therefore they can break the rules. Real quick, get Zechariah 11:5. Because they'll tell you on one hand on how horrific slavery was, but then tell you that shouldn't matter because at the time it wasn't illegal.
Right. Zechariah 11, verse 5, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. and that seldom say, "Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich," and their own shepherds pity them not.
Right. So you created a society to where you said that the so-called Negro was 2/3 of a man, or sorry, 2/5 of a man, which is why I just learned this from the apostles. I was watching them the other day. That's why they call you boy, because they don't look at you as a man. All right. They call the so-called Native Americans savages, to where you're not even a man. You're just a creature. You know, they don't view you as a human being ultimately, man. That's why you have legislation such as the Casual Killing Act, to where if you were beat and they died and the slave died, that was just pretty much an insurance policy they took out to pretty much get the money back for killing property ultimately. And to this day, you're still looked at as property, because your social security number is pretty much bet on Wall Street. So they're showing you they don't look at us as humans, man. All right, so that's why they're never going to ultimately feel bad and bring justice for what they did to us as a nation, man. It says in the United States, the United States also strongly objects to the resolution's attempt to rate crimes against humanity in any type of hierarchy. He said this assertion that some crimes against humanity are less severe than others objectively diminishes the suffering of countless victims and survivors of other atrocities through history, which we know this is gaslighting, all right, because they don't want to diminish the quote unquote narrative of the Holocaust, man. So that's why they really don't want to bring credence to this statement, because they want to continue to force feed you the lies of the Holocaust. Remember 9/11. Remember the Alamo. Remember Pearl Harbor. So they'll tell you that what happened to the Edomites, everything with them. Hey, that's the top of the top of everything. But when it comes down to the suffering of the so-called Negro to the Americans, hey, just deal with it. Forget about it. You're not that important. It shows you the hypocrisy, man. But the Most High, He knows, and He's going to justify us, man. All right. This is Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. It says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. All right. So the Most High, if anybody else, doesn't want to, atone, the Most High is going to atone for us, man. Get Psalm the 10th chapter. It said that how they thought the Most High forgot. But it says, I know that works in tribulation. The Lord knows the shit that we had to go through, and we're still going through, man. All right. The silent wars that Esau has waged upon us is now becoming, loud. All right. It's being brought out. Okay. That juice that they try to give our people in 2020, they let it be known that, hey, you so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, you need to get this, because just like in that show, what's the name of that show? I just slipped my mind. But in the show, they showed you that the jab that they was giving people in that show, they was pretty much sterilizing the people. All right, and that was right around the time when C-19 was real heavy with the jab, man. I wish I could remember the name of that shit. I can't think of it right now. But that shows you that they have been on a campaign to kill you tribes out there, man, because it's been admitted that juice was a part of a depopulation agenda. So when they said that the so-called, and they actually said this, they want the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Americans to get it first, to show you they were trying to get you out the way, man. You got anything out?
I got that song for you.
Okay.
Psalm 10 and starting verse 10. He croucheth and humbleth himself, that the poor may fall by his strong ones. He had said in his heart, the Most High hath forgotten. He hideth his face, he will never see it.
You got it.
And this is the mindset that they're in, that every move that they make, has no recompense, man. Right? Because they look at us as being, completely separated from Yahweh Shai. Right? Mm-hmm. They, as the scriptures say, didn't consider their latter end. They didn't take into account, Ezekiel 37 chapter, man. right? They didn't take into account, Revelation 11, right? So what we're seeing right now is the pride of Esau, man, right? That's ultimately what this, boils down to. They're never gonna take accountability for what they've done, especially when they don't view it as any wrongdoing, man. As the priest may mention, they look at you as subhuman,
Right.
So the same way they treat the animals, the same way they treat the earth, right? And they move without recompense. That's the same way they're gonna move, when dealing with the tribes, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that show I was talking about was called Utopia for those that haven't seen it. Because the dude I'm talking about, his name is Mr. Rabbit. And when you watch Mr. Rabbit in the show, he literally acts and looks like Gates of Hell, man. So in that show, they told you that juice they was giving people was to sterilize the world, and lo and behold, what we saw, as a side effect for that juice was the same thing: sterilization and a depopulation. All right, so like I said, the justification is we're not looking for no justification for these devils, man. All right, the justification is going to come from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So let's get this in Baruch 4:18, read down to about 25. We're going to end it right there.
It's the book of Baruch, chapter 4 and verse 18. For he that brought these plagues upon you will deliver you from the hands of your enemies.
Yeah, hey, the Lord, because like you brought out earlier, the Lord is going to be the one to give us true reparations, man. The reparations are going to start by us being, delivered out of the hands of our enemies, specifically the Edomites, man. All right, that great exodus is going to happen when the Lord delivers us out of the land of the north. That's the beginning of the reparation that's going to be given, man. Go ahead.
Go your way, O my children, go your way, for I am left desolate. I have put off the clothing of peace, and put on me the sackcloth of my prayer. I will cry unto the everlasting in my days.
And that's what the elect is doing right now. We're crying to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai for deliverance, man. Go ahead.
Be of good cheer, O my children. Cry unto the Lord, and he will deliver you from the power and hand of the enemies.
Yeah. So these cries that we're doing, whether it be physical or like in Romans 8 says that our spirit cried out when words words aren't spoken. All right. It says that the cries of the righteous or the meek and humble, they reached up to the ears of the Heavenly Father. So the Lord is answering our prayers. This is why we're seeing the world move in the direction it is, because it's all coming to the the final judgment of Babylon the Great, man. All our enemies are about to be judged for the shit that we had to endure as a people, as a nation, man. Go ahead.
For my hope is in the everlasting, that he will save you, and joy is come unto me from the Holy One, because of the mercy which shall soon come unto you from the everlasting our Savior.
Keep going.
For I sent you out with mourning and weeping, but the Most High will give you to me again with joy and gladness forever.
Yeah, and this is why, Spirit, we're in the time of the Passover. It's about to come in on Wednesday night. But in the same thing that the Most High told Moses, whenever he brought him out to that burning bush, he said that, I've heard the affliction of my people. Hey, that's happening today. The Lord has heard the affliction of the people, of the elect first, but also he hears the cries of 2/3, because even though they're wicked and they're gonna be judged on this side, they're still the Lord's people. They're just sick. All right. So the Lord is going to do them a mercy kill, all right, by deleting them on this side and then restoring them in the kingdom of heaven through the loins of the elect, man. So everything is going to be brought full circle, and then we'll be able to fully reenact, all right, the judgment that's going to be given out to the heathen, starting with Esau, Edom.
Okay. Baruch 4:24. Like as now the neighbors of Zion have seen your captivity, so shall they see shortly your salvation from our power, which shall come upon you with great glory and brightness of the everlasting.
Right. So as great as the transatlantic slave trade and all the slavery, the sub-Saharan slave trade, the Dutch slave trade, on down. All right. As the world saw us go into slavery, the world is going to see us be delivered out of the land of the Lord. You brought out Wisdom of Solomon in the 5th chapter. All right, we're not going to get it, but when you read, into that chapter, it goes into how the whole world is going to witness the sons of God, all right, be taken up in those ships, man. all right, the elect, all right, the 144,000 prophets and the men, women, and children that believe, man, the whole world is going to see the deliverance of the elect, man. You know, go ahead.
Verse 25. My children, suffer patiently the wrath that has come upon you from the Most High. For thine enemy hath persecuted thee, but shortly thou shalt see his destruction and shalt tread upon his neck.
Yeah. So once we get delivered, all right, then that's when we're gonna be able to, redistribute out that same pain that you gave us, man. That's that in Revelation, the 18th chapter, reward unto her double.
Yep.
All right. Hey, we're gonna show you how to truly enslave and reshape the planet, because you heathen, all right, you don't know truly how to rule, man. So we're gonna show you that in the most powerfulest way, man. All right. You got any closing statements, bro?
That was it.
All right. So, hey, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, so we're gonna end it here. All right. So with that, we want to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And peace and salutation to the elect. Until next time, we say Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.